Hey guys, welcome to the Narrative Mindset podcast. It's been a minute since I posted an episode. Hope everybody's doing okay. It's definitely New Year. A lot of things to talk about here. Uh, I guess I'll start off with you all know I do rideshare. For those of you who don't know, that is my full time job. I kind of want to talk about that a little bit and how rideshare actually works. It's basically the best way I can explain rideshare is that it's the same as a regular job, right? Because when you do your taxes, you have mileage that you can collect, and you have expenses that you can collect. But after it's all said and done, they take so much that you make the same thing you would on a regular job. The only difference is you're claiming expenses, but at the end of the day, you're paying almost the same amount of taxes. Because a lot of people think that they say, okay, I'm out here doing ride share. I got a ride for, I had one the other day. It was like 36 miles and paid me $18. Then I had a ride coming from like a mile or two from that point where I dropped the person off. That was another 36 miles for $18. But the way you look at that is you want to rack up more mileage like that, because when you go to pay your taxes, now you have a bigger mileage reimbursement. So that's one thing. Another thing is I have a membership around the corner at the car wash for both of my cars. I have a Prius, and then I have a 2021 Mustang that I don't drive, which is a bad financial decision, but it is what it is. I have a membership around the corner, and it's like a monthly recurring membership. So when I went to do my taxes, come to find out that I could claim that. Everything that I have to buy, I used to bitch and moan about. They don't pay me enough to provide snacks and napkins and wet wipes and all this other stuff. Yeah, it turns into a babysitting job. But I come to find out that I can claim all that stuff. I just have to wait till the end of the year. So that's, pretty much a headache, as you can imagine. But so when you do your taxes every quarter, then you want as much mileage as you can get to add up so you can do your taxes. But it's still going to end up being the same thing. So that's one thing about rideshare. And as you all know, if you've been listening to this podcast, I do about 12 hours a day, 5 days a week. So, I'm racking up, probably 300, 350 miles per day. But I drive a Prius, which is, to me, by far, the best car that you can use for that job, because I don't know how some people do it with, I think I saw one guy driving like a Ford F-150, and I was like, man, he is not making any money doing that job, because, he's, got a truck, there's a few problems that come with certain vehicles. Number one, the type of vehicle you have and the people you're picking up are usually a lot of elderly people, so they have to get help getting in the car and getting out. So that's more getting in and out of the vehicle for you. So, and then awkward, people want you to pull in their driveway and all this kind of stuff. And then that just makes it even worse. So that's just another thing that really doesn't make sense. me personally, Prius I fill up once a day. I still got usually it's like about a almost a quarter of a tank when I'm done. So it works out pretty good. But when I did my taxes, I usually don't, mention too much financial stuff, but what the hell? I made this year, and hold your breath, I made 135 this year. And before you say it, no, I'm not balling. But I only brought home about 75, maybe 80. Yeah, they cut you off. I think they cut you off at the ankles, not at the knees, but the way I look at it is I used to work for the railroad and I had to deal with a lot of, it was a shit show. And, I made probably, I think about 100,000, but I still had to pay, what do you call it? I only brought home about 70,000. Yeah, and I want to say something real quick, kind of on this subject. I think I said I had to pay, and I couldn't really think of what it is, and I was like, I had to pay. And it's like, if you're the person who I'm talking to, you're like, is taxes the word you're looking for? Because when I have to pay something, that's first thing that comes to mind. But yeah, I had to pay taxes, and basically, to make a long story short, I made the same thing. I made about 70,000. So it's pretty much the same thing. I think if you ask me, the only difference between the two is that you pay. You're on one job you have a boss. On the other job you don't have a boss. And you deal with a lot of people, and you have a lot of gripes and things of that nature, wait time, whatever it is. But it's, for me, the process that I did in my mind is I said, okay, I like my life right now. I like being able to work for myself. I like weekends off. I like being able to be able to make this work. And I know what I have to do. And the only person that's stopping me is me. So therefore, I said, okay, is it really that bad? If I make it. My life is not that bad at all. I make it sound like it is, but no. There are people who would love to live my life. So I had to pretty much make a decision that I wasn't going to let myself become or involved in these people's everyday problems. They don't have a car, or they're late for work, or the car's in the shop, or relationship problems, or, they got in a fight with their significant other, or whatever the case may be. I just stopped getting involved in that. And then when I stop, and they may take the whole 5 minutes to come out, I'm playing on my phone trying to, figure out, what I'm going to talk about on my podcast, or, trying to get my sound right and everything. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in the episode. But I'm constantly on ChatGPT trying to, going back and forth, and trying to get this stuff all figured out. So once I did that, now the job is pretty good. I take my time. I'm not in a rush. I'm not trying to make a certain amount of money, because I figured out a point where if I make this amount of money, I'm good with it. So I don't need to make, the full, whatever it is. Sometimes you'll make $350, other times you'll make $220. It just depends. But some people just run themselves ragged trying to make every last little penny. And I get it, but it's not good, because you're chasing a dollar amount, which means that you're rushing between rides, which means you're going to get bad ratings, and which means ultimately you'll more than likely get deactivated, which can happen at any given time. So therefore, I figured if I'm going to do this job, I'm going to make it work for me, and that's what I did, and that's why it's been working out. I've been doing it for about probably about 2 years by itself after I left the railroad. So they're going pretty good so far, but lo and behold, don't take my word for that, because you can get deactivated at any given time. So it is what it is. Well, I think I was talking about earlier, I went and did my taxes, ended up paying like $7,000, I think, $7,500, something like that, which seems like a lot, but it's not, because when I was working with the railroad and I was doing rideshare also, I went and did my taxes, paid the same exact thing. I think that year I made $124 with both incomes combined. So it's the same thing. It's the same money. Only one job, they're taking taxes out. The other job, you're paying your taxes and you're claiming expenses. So it works out pretty good. Besides that, I got a call from my daughter, my youngest daughter, who was the one who was doing pretty good or whatever. At least I thought. But me and her mother had to get on her because she had asked me if she could come live with me. And I live in Detroit, and she lives in Grand Rapids. And at first I told her, I said, no, I said, Detroit is a little bit too dangerous, because Detroit, they're different. And it's a city. All cities might be the same. I'm not sure, because I haven't lived in any other cities. But I just don't think that it's safe for, my daughter coming from a small town to a city where you really have to grow up really quick, because there's a lot more going on. And I just didn't think that that was a smart move. So I told her at first, I said, nah, you can't come here. You have to, you're better off getting a job in Grand Rapids, because she lives with her mother and everything. And the issue over there is, and I really didn't want her to call me, because my life is peaceful and it's just like drama. But the issue has and always probably will be that her mother has babied her from birth, got her everything, paid for everything, all this kind of stuff. And she calls me and she's, just running off her mouth and everything. And she's saying, well, I had to give, Jasmine this and had to do this and I had to do this. And she's saying it like somebody is twisting her arm and making her do it. And it's like, this is your daughter, not, some pimp, smacking you around, making you give them money, but she'll do it and then complain about it. So it's like, stop doing it, 'cause with me, it just wouldn't happen. So, the problem is with that kind of behavior, my daughter is over there and was thinking, she can play the game and not get a job. So when I got word of it, then, you get the old ultimatum, because she called her grandmother and her grandmother told her, you can come here, but you got to pay rent. I told her the same thing, because I was kind of fed up with it. And I said, hey, if you want to come here, that's fine, but you got to pay rent. The only place that she doesn't have to pay rent is at her mother's house. So do the math. Is it easier for me to get a job, stay at mom's house, literally wide open? Fine. Because if I go to my grandmother's, got to get a job, got to pay rent. If I go to my dad's house, got to get a job, got to pay rent. And then on top of that, I told her, keep in touch. Give me daily updates on what's going on. So, when that happened, miraculously, she got a job. Go figure. Because I know when I was younger, I wouldn't have wanted my dad to step in and say, hey, now I need you to call me and let me know what's going on. Give me daily updates or I'm going to call you because, I would have got my stuff in order pretty quick. But I never had that problem of somebody having to make me go get work because I was out cutting grass and, delivering papers and, doing whatever I could do, to put that little bit of extra money in my pocket. I don't know what the deal is with my daughter, but, I take that back. I kind of do know what the deal is. Her mother babied her whole life, so that's what the deal is. But she's, last time I checked, I called her. She said she was working, and so I said, okay, call mother, daughter. She was working, so I said, okay, that was a crisis and a headache averted. But what else has been going on? My sound, not sure if you can hear it, but if you listen to older episodes and this one, they probably sound a little bit different because I think I said this on another episode also. My process in podcasting has been, really a really long process. And like with other people you may listen to, they have the same problem. They're trying to get that perfect sound out of a what's basically, and I'll explain this, what's basically a digital channel strip. And I'll explain that here in a minute. But the problem is, and it's with everything, the problem is a consumer buys a product that they create, and the selling point is this will get you to the pro where you want to be. And that's just not true. It takes a little bit of work. My best example is bodybuilders. If you want to be a professional bodybuilder, you have to do what that bodybuilder does. You can't just go to the gym every day and do whatever the hell you want to do. You have to work out like them, eat like them, yada, 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 everything like that. So in this case, the thing we're talking about is podcast sound. So I bought a Rodecaster Pro 2, which is a great piece of equipment, but it's made for the home user that wants to, one and done, be record and have a machine do everything for them. And that's fine. But the Rodecaster is pretty much in my opinion, it's pretty much a digital channel strip, which is basically your own, kind of your own plug-in that you own, basically, and it has certain limitations unless you're like an expert who knows, about the gain and about all of this other stuff. So to make a long story short, like I said, me and ChatGPT, we go back and forth all day long. And I'm always trying to figure out, like, okay, how can I get to that next step? And from my knowledge, kind of common sense, I've watched YouTube videos and I've done everything that they did and this and that and sounded nothing like them. So I said, okay, common sense is telling me that there's something they're not telling me. That's just it. There's no way that they're doing this and sounding like this off of the same equipment that I have. There's just no way. And then when I would listen to some of their YouTube videos and they would go back and forth, I would also say, hang on, there's no way that you're sounding just as good with a USB mic as you are with an XLR mic. There's just no way. So I said, okay. And I finally ended up stumbling upon the broadcast processor, which I have a Semtrex 528E. Great machine. I have a SM7DB. I have it plugged into a Semtrex 528E. That is plugged into the Rodecaster. But the difference between the Semtrex 528E, which was about $150, you can get them off eBay. The difference between the Semtrex and the Rodecaster is the Semtrex is a real version. Like the Semtrex is a real EQ, de-esser, compressor. The Rodecaster is basically a plug-in of those things. Still works, but it's a plug-in. And if you look at the settings on the Rodecaster, the default settings, they're actually pretty good if your gain is right. If your gain is correct, you're getting, with the compressor, you're getting 3 to 6 decibels of reduction, which is what you want. So the Rodecaster, from what I see and my determination, is that the Rodecaster was made as if you have a clean signal coming into it. And that's why the default settings are so subtle. And I just believe that's what it was made for. With that in mind. I just don't think that it was made to take anything and just shape it into a professional podcast. I just don't. And also another thing about podcasts is or podcast sound. I did buy I think I had this last time too, a portable sound booth. You can get them off Amazon or whatever. I think they're like 100 and something. So I bought the sound booth and I tried everything. I tried putting moving blankets over it, all kinds of stuff. And just a side note, moving blankets are good, but they do not do the same thing as acoustic foam. Remember that. So I tried different rooms. My studio is in my bedroom right now. But what I did that finally worked is I covered the inside of the booth 3 squares wide by 4 squares long on each wall with acoustic squares. I just got some cardboard and some spray adhesive, put it on there, and then I hung it up so that the acoustic, so my body from my sitting down, from the seat to above my head, these acoustic foam panels, I'm in that area. And then what I did, it has a zipper door. So what I did was I took a moving blanket, since I had so many of them. I bought a bunch of them from Harbor Freight. So since I had so many of them, I did the same thing with a moving blanket. I folded it in half and then put the same 3x4 acoustic panels on that and then hung that over the door with the zipper door open. So now, and I have it on the roof also. I made a panel with a bunch of those things on it that's up on the roof. So you would not believe that, with any mic you have, if you have a treated booth, it's going to make your sound much tighter, much warmer. Just that upgrade. you know, because those acoustic squares, they absorb everything that's not being absorbed without them. So you end up having to cut your gain up, much higher than you thought you could cut it up without all of this stuff. And that's another thing about the Rodecaster. You got to remember that it's built to be inside of a treated booth, not inside a room. The noise gate and everything, I mean, they're helpful, but it's meant to be inside of a treated booth, not out in your living room. That noise gate is not for blocking out, all the noise that we all have in our bedrooms and apartments or houses or whatever. It's meant for you to be inside of a booth and work over that where inside a treated space. Also, what I want to tell you is you want to make sure, if you decide to do this, you want to make sure that you do it as far as the portable booth or something the same size. I mean, you can make one, go get PVC. I would suggest using cardboard. And then once you have the cardboard up, get the panels and go inside the booth and put them inside and just hang the cardboard, and it'll do the same thing. But if you were to take your bedroom and put these acoustic panels all over the walls, you got to remember that your voice has a longer path to travel to get to those panels. So it's going to make it sound different. But when you have, this booth that you're sitting in, then your voice is much tighter because the acoustic panels are a lot closer. So you want to remember that if you decide to do it. Even if you have a USB mic, and you're trying to figure out, okay, man, how can I, get my sound to sound better or whatever. You're on your computer or whatever. Get or make a booth. Go on Amazon, get you a couple things of acoustic panels and put them up in there. Make walls out of them. You'll be surprised at, how much better you sound just with those panels. It was amazing how I was at, I think my mic is on 28 decibels and my Rodecaster was on like 40. I still wasn't hitting the red. So it was like, wow. And the reason is the acoustic panels, they get rid of any other noise outside of your voice. So you finally get to feed your voice into the mic, and you finally realize your voice isn't that loud. It's just everything else that's loud. So that's another thing that was going on. It's Saturday. I'm sorry. It's Saturday. It's Friday. I took Friday off. I woke up and I said, you know what? I'm gonna take Friday off. Today is the day to pay my my credit card, and I go month by month with that. I ended up having to do my brakes yesterday too on my Prius, and that wasn't as tricky as I thought it was going to be, but it almost turned into a disaster. I was out doing left, and then I heard my brakes kind of grinding. So I was like, oh, I can't do this because, what'll happen is a passenger will quickly send Lyft a message, believe it or not, hey, there's something wrong with this car, and they'll do it after they get where they're going. So I heard that and I said, well, I wanted to go home anyway. So I, went home. I had ordered some pads and rotors that it came in the mail the day before. So I went ahead and got that done. Come to find out, crazy part, after taking all of my brakes apart, changing them, there was one pad on one side in the rear that was all the way down to the metal. All the other ones were damn near brand new. I was like, what the hell is going on here? But it was like, whatever. You know, it was like, whatever. You know, I don't know what's going on. Long as the car runs and stops and it's safe to drive, it is what it is. I was going to do the rotors, but actually the front rotors don't need to be done. And the back ones, I went to change those, and I'm not sure how to get that rotor off. I hit it with a hammer, accidentally knocked one of my my studs in the back of the rotor, so I had to dig that out and put it back in. After that, I was like, you know what? I'm not doing anything else that I don't have to do, because I'm not going to be out here all day, trying to, figure out something that I screwed up. So end up getting that done, and the rest of the day was pretty good. And then I took the day off, so today is pretty good. And I just wanted to kind of catch up with you guys and make sure you put a fresh episode out there. I do have another podcast also. It's called Stuff You Should Think About, that I have been really focusing on. I got about 60 episodes, I believe. I do an episode every day. It's about I answer everyday questions about phenomena and objects in bite-sized episodes. So I talk about everything on that podcast. And this one is, pretty much a narrative podcast around, just stuff that I want to talk about. And I will be posting episodes on here, probably more than likely on this podcast. It'll probably be like once a week. So I hope everybody is doing pretty good. And that's it for this episode. Take care.